Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to take on a Daiwa G4000. I'm going to guess this reel is probably late 90s or early 2000s. It was made in Korea. It's a nice solid reel. It's bogged down. And bogged down usually means dried grease or no grease. We're going to take this apart. We'll show you how this reel is made. And we'll show you how to service it if you have one. And if you're looking to acquire one, well, we'll tell you a little bit about the properties of the reel themselves. It does have a traditional Daiwa look and feel. It's a graphite case, and it's kind of along the lines of the Black Gold series. It says 4-ball bearings, so we'll try and identify them for you as we go through this particular reel. And if you have any questions, then we'll certainly try to answer them for you if you leave them in the comments section. So this one's called a power disc drag system, and the reason why it's called a power disc drag system is that the drags are on the bottom of the spool as opposed to on the top, and it's very similar to what you would find in today's spin fisher line with the slammer drag system. The drags are below here, and we'll get to those in a little bit, but I did want to show you that that's where they are. They're not up top like you would find in most top drag systems. And of course, that's a good place to be, because it's going to shield you from the waters and that come off the line. As that water's coming off the line, it's going to run outside the spool, not inside. And so that's a nice design. So as I take the pieces and parts off, the large parts I'll put right in front of me. The smaller parts I'll put into a parts tray. You'll also notice that I'm wearing a glove that's going to protect my hand from greases and dirt and junk, and I'm going to bet that there's a good amount of that inside here. And we'll just continue taking these parts off the exterior. And while I do that, I want to thank our first responders, our essential personnel, our law enforcement, EMTs, fire, health and rescue, and all of the folks in the medical field that are working hard to keep us safe during this pandemic and to restore those who have contracted the virus, to restore them to health as well. This has a through handle on it. A lot of the Daiwa reels do, and those are connected either by a screw or, in this case, a screw button. And when I take that off, I like to just put it right back into the arm. That way I won't lose it. And you can tell if your handle is screwed into the main gear, or if it has a button like this one. By turning your handle before you remove it, you will notice that the button moves, and that'll tell you that the arm goes straight through. Sometimes you just have a cap on there, like some pen wheels, and if that cap isn't moving, then chances are it's a screw and handle. But before you go to rip it off, take that cap off just to confirm it. Sometimes there is a screw hiding under that stationary cap, so just err on the side of caution. We're going to remove the 4 side plate screws here. I like to leave them on my table as I remove those screws, because I want to make sure they're the same length. If there's a short screw in here, you want to note what hole that short screw is going in, and then that'll help you with the reassembly. Because if you try and put a long screw in a short hole, it's not going to fit, obviously. And sometimes the short screw will not fit in the long screw hole. So there you go. These 4 are the same, so I'm going to go put those into my parts tray. And then we should be able to remove the cover. And I think what we have here is no grease. So remember what I said. You have either a lot of grease or you have no grease. In this case, it's no grease. This is kind of a typical older school or old style oscillation system. It has a crosswind arm on it. Most of the newer ones seem to have crosswind blocks, and this one's held in by a pin. So before we get there, this is one of your bearings on the reel. Let's take that bearing off. I'm going to oil it. Like I said, I think the issue we're going to find here is lack of oil, so we're just going to oil it. I'm going to set it into the case where it belongs. I'm just going to put that case into my tray. Next up, you'll notice there's a shim washer behind that. That shim washer acts to stabilize the main gear in and out, but it also holds this crosswind on. You'll notice how it tucks in on top of that lip there. It kind of keeps it from falling off the circle. Okay, this pin should just pull out. or we can just remove the arm. Either way, there you go, we're going to remove the arm. In this case, the axle shaft is connected by a Phillips head screw, so it's a good thing we did that rather than trying to force an issue. To remove the axle shaft, then you want to remove the set screw. You'll notice it's on my driver, and you should be able to pull this whole thing right up now. There we go, the crosswind block is out, and this is, yeah, so what we have is a whole bunch of dried grease on here. It was difficult to pull that out, and no surprise there. I'm going to use some steel wool then just to kind of clean up the old dried grease off of this. Make sure it's smooth. Wipe it down, and we'll come back and we'll lubricate this when we go to put it back in. And this looks like it's either pressed on or part of the main gears, so that's the bottom part of the drag system that you will be pressing up against, so we'll just clean that up. And it looks like there might be some kind of an inset here. We're just going to leave that, it's not important. Okay, when you do that, then you can take off your main gear. The main gear pulls out, and we can see that it's got an old style anti-reverse as well. So this has got an arm on it. You will see it when we clean up the dried grease. It's a little hard right now to see it, but it will clean up, and we will move it, and it should move. I'm going to flood it with some penetrating oil just to make sure that I can make this move the right way, because that might be tying it down too. Any kind of tension you get in a reel is going to cause the reel to slow down, and this is a fixed point when you go to reinstall, so it could be that that's slowing it down a little bit as well. I'm going to clean out the rest of the oils and greases that are dried in there. And I'm going to set the arm, and maybe you can see it better now on the camera, but there's an arm here, and that arm is going to go through, and it's going to sit in this slot right here. It's going to sit on the slot of that anti-reverse dog. So you'll see the dog up top, but that's going to be what intersects to that. So we have the case, it's very dry. That's obviously why the reel is moving hard. And we'll get this one back and running again. So we have a tie down here. We're going to remove that tie down with a screwdriver. Just find the right one. It can be a Phillips head. In that case, the Phillips head was too small. You can also use a flat bladed screwdriver, as the slot goes straight through on the one side. So go ahead and take that out. And while we're doing that, I'd ask you to take a moment and subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe, please hit the notification button. That will make sure that you have the opportunity to see all of the videos that I post. And I do post frequently. I've been trying to post every day during the pandemic. It's quite a challenge from time to time, but I have been trying to post every day, and you wouldn't want to miss an episode. I work on all kinds of reels. It doesn't matter what age or what type, whether it's bait casting or spinning or conventional saltwater reels or the like, and I do try to show, as we do here, a step-by-step process to take apart and repair your reel. So if you're into reel mechanics, if you want to learn a little bit about reels, or if you just enjoy watching something like this, then by all means, please subscribe. We've taken the nut off, we've taken that hold down clamp. We should just be able to rock it and pull it up, which we can. And here's bearing number 2, I guess, or 3. I didn't notice if there was one on the side. This one has very big screws that hold that bearing and pinion gear in place. So we're going to remove those. And Daiwa has this little phrase, motto, it's called Market Precision, and they are well-made reels. And they do have a lineup that goes everything from a value reel to a very expensive reel. And they're geared at all types of anglers in all types of fishing situations. And I mention that because I'm going to do a short series on how the fishing reel marketplace defines anglers and how they suggest that those anglers are marketed to. It'll be under a part called the business of fishing, And if you think you might enjoy some of that, that's even more reason to go ahead and subscribe. And that will help everybody, I think, to appreciate what the seller's side of the business is and what they're thinking of in terms of their customers, and how to make sure that they have their customers right. I guess it's called demographics, and how they can maximize their sales, which you know, I guess if you're in the business of selling, that's something that you would want to do. All right, these are the cap washers up top here. Just looking for a cotton swab to clean this bearing off. And then you have a little shim washer that goes on top. And it's important to note that when you do these, that there's usually a shim washer on top of the bearing that's going to sit between the bearing and the rotor cup. And if it's not there, you may have very erratic performance in your reel. So make sure that you have that. All right, I've just put a little bit of grease onto that. I'm going to reinstall that bearing. We'll put that little shim washer back up top on that. Bottom of the part is done. I've cleaned off the teeth on the pinion gear, and I've inspected it to make sure that they're all straight and they're not bent or chipped or cracked or some other way impeding the performance of the reel. Usually if you have one tooth cracked, it's just going to be something to the effect of a skip. And if you have a whole bunch of them cracked, well, you have to replace the gear. And I mention that because a lot of times you'll get hung up on a rock and you don't think that there's an issue there, and all of a sudden it becomes a big issue because the teeth got distorted in the process. All right, that little metal piece lines in with that anti-reverse. We push down on the main gear, we pull those 3 big screws out of our parts tray, and we go put this back together there. This is the reason why I use the parts tray. You always know where to look for the pieces and parts. Every now I'm guilty of laying some pieces on my my table, and even when I'm guilty, I tend to lose them. You can see how I have a little paper towel underneath that's kind of collecting the grease in that, and sometimes I'll just forget that I have the screws on there, and I'll go to change out the towel because it's getting dirty, and next thing I know, the screws are somewhere where they don't need to be. So let's tie this one down. It's probably easier to do it that way. This is fairly common where manufacturers have used screws to hold the bearing assembly in place, and if you have that, just make sure that they're properly seated. You don't want any up and down play in these, and the up and down play can occur if these are not tied down. Your pinion gear will move up and down, you'll get some slop, and it won't perform optimally. Okay, we'll just put this last one in. I'm using a little bit of grease here to hold the slot. Those of you that watch my channel enough know that I have some difficulty getting these pieces in every now and then, so take your time, go ahead and do it right. All right, and then we can remember that we have the rotor that goes on next. There wasn't much going on here. If you remember, make sure it's clean underneath. It is. If you do want to oil that trip arm there, you can go ahead and do that. It's going to ride up this ramp, and it's going to cause the bail to trip. There's 2 flat sides there. Make sure that that gets mounted properly. Let's go ahead and start your rotor nut by hand so that you know you're not cross-stripping it. And tighten it down. Give it a spin. Make sure it's working. And you can see how the anti-reverse is working. That little hammer arm there is in the stop mode at the moment. And what's going to happen is when you get the main gear, it's going to have a little catch on it that's going to pull it in so that it operates properly. But we'll get there in a moment. We have the tie down we want to put back on the reel first. That should line with the hole. If it doesn't, you may need to move it just a little bit. And you want to get that tie down screw to hold that in place. Now what I recommend also is to take pictures along the way. I'm working on this without a schematic, but I am taking pictures so that if I get stumped, if I look at my parts tray and there's a piece there that I didn't recognize where it may have come from, then I can go back and look at the pictures. Of course, my pictures are video, but you don't need to take videos. You can use your cell phone, use your digital phone, use a digital camera, do whatever you like to take the pictures, but just have them as a reference point in case those are needed. So this said 4-ball bearings, but there's a bushing in this side, which is kind of interesting. So I'm not quite sure where the 4 bearings are. I saw the 2, one here and one up top here, and we might have one as a line roller. We probably do. So let's go ahead and oil that line roller where we're at it. And we probably have one in the handle. I'm thinking that's where the other one goes. All right, we've cleaned the main gear. Now, if you had a schematic, it would tell you where the bearings are. I've been had a question come into my through the comments section of the videos about a Abu that says it has 4-ball bearings. For the life of us, we can only find 3, but that's okay. I've had some of these Chinese reels, I think, not in a derogatory sense, but these Chinese reels that have said that there's 12 or 13 or 15 bearings, and for the life of me I take them apart and I can't find more than maybe 6. So you want to look through this peak hole here, if you will, to make sure that you're in that that little part that I was telling you about, that groove there. Now we can go ahead and take this crosswind block, make sure that's cleaned up. This is an easy one to get upside down, right? So you have to remember when we took that crosswind arm off that the screw was hiding behind that crosswind arm. It's real easy to put it up this way, and if you do, it's going to bump. It's going to impact the top there. So just make sure that you have the right orientation on that. And again, that would be a good place, for example, to take the picture. Our memories kind of fool us from time to time. All right, I'm going to put that stud into the track there. We're going to take our axle shaft, which we cleaned off, put just a very light coat of grease onto that. Don't put too much. It's only going to scrape off up top if you do. Find the flat side. That's going to go to the front. The flat side at the bottom of that axle shaft, and then just kind of work it in. And I know this is difficult watching and doing it at the same time, if you will, but you want to make sure that the hole lines up with the hole. And once you have that hole lined up, get the crosswind block screw. That's the one that's got the flat head on it. Go ahead and put that in there and make sure that's nice and tight. Now, I didn't remove that shim washer there, but you certainly can. I just left it on the main gear, but when you go to reinstall the crosswind arm, make sure that you slide it under that washer, otherwise it will jam. That's the way that should be. Shim washer over, and then just get a light coating of grease on the face of the main gear, because that arm is going to travel around and it's going to rub all sides of that. With that done, then let's grab our case and close this up. We've oiled that bearing. Going to our parts tray for the last 4 pieces of the externals, and then we'll go up top there with that drag system. We'll show you that. We kind of started showing you that, but we'll show that to you again. I fully expect that now that it has some fresh grease and oils in it, that this thing should spin a whole lot easier. I've forgotten that I used the bigger screwdriver there. So just tighten them down and go kind of north, south, east, west on these. Kind of tighten them up here. Of course, I'm having a little trouble with that. Back to the other one. There you go. What I've got is I've got grease on the tip of the screwdriver now. I got grease in the channel of the screw, and so nothing's gripping that well. We can work through that. And then one more. There we go. So folks also ask why I don't service the bail during the servicing. And truth be known, if the bail is working, it doesn't need service. A little drop of oil on each side of the slots is plenty, just to keep it lubricated. It's only spring driven, and there's nothing you can really do to service a spring. Put the oil on the slots, work it in. We've already oiled underneath on the trip lever. So now we're back to the drag stack. So the drag stack has that first part of it is the washer that's holding down the it's attached to the axle. Then we have what's called a keyed washer. It's a rectangular shape. It'll only fit on one way. That's going to hold the shaft tight. Then we have a polyurethane or Teflon washer. Just make sure it's clean. Those don't need to be greased or oiled. In this case, they are. Here's the second of the metal or keyed washers. And then we have the plate. I'm just going to clean that up. Underneath the plate here, I believe there's one more washer, so let's just go ahead and check in with that. I often wonder what the real designers think when they make these things. Although I have to say that they are a whole lot better than the engine builders and that in the automobile industry, who probably figure that everybody has the ability to just pull an engine out to work on it, even to replace simple pieces and parts. In this case, these wheels are pretty much all hand assembled anyway, or at least they were. And with that, I guess they had to consider that on the front end of it, and that of course makes it easy on the back end. So we have another set of drags in here now. So this really is a power drag. I don't know what the max drag is on this one, but I would say it's pretty significant. So here's a lot of dirt in here. We're going to get that dirt off, and we just found bearing number 3. It's in the spool. So I kind of like that design. And that one wouldn't have an effect on the sluggish performance of this reel. That's just going to help the spool turn easier under load. But there's your third washer, your third bearing. Okay, just clean the grease on that. Let's go ahead and put that back in. There's a nice healthy dose of oil in that. And we had the tie down again. This is going to be the extra drag washer. So this has got plenty of max drag in this drag washer here. This drag set. This one's a felt washer, so this one needs to get oiled. This one's got grease on it. You can grease or oil them. I prefer oiling on them. We'll just clean off the excess here. Then we can reseat this. And we'll give it a test drive. We'll see how we did. I would fully expect that this is going to go. Just checking to see if there was a flared side to this. I remember that we had rounded screw heads. And I do have trouble with small parts, so I do sometimes dip them into grease to hold them as I go to try and set the screws into position. Grease isn't going to hurt the screws here. So that's one down. I don't tighten fully because you got to make sure that you get over to the other 2 openings and you have it going in square. Didn't get enough on it there, I guess. So if you have questions, if you're working on a reel and you're stuck, maybe you're working on a Daiwa and you couldn't find a video for that particular Daiwa and you're over here just because it's close to the type of reel that you've been working on and you have a question, leave it in the comment section. I will be happy to try and answer your question, get you unstuck, and get your reel out there, giving it a second chance to go catch some fish. So I have no problem with doing that. If I'm able to tell you, I will. And if you ask the questions, I will try to respond to you. The best way to do those questions is email. And there'll be a business card that follows that I'll ask you. If you don't want to leave the question in the comments section, then contact me by the email. You can also use that email to contact me if you're interested in a reel repair, because I do those reel repairs by mail as well. Okay, so we have a drag stack there. We have a drag stack here. We've lined them all up. We just want to make sure that we can come through on the top end of this. Since I have the adjuster knob off, we might as well clean it up a little bit. And we'll see how this reel performs, because it's essentially done other than putting that handle back on. And this is a reminder, when you go to service your reels, get rid of the line. First of all, there's not a lot of line on this one. It would be ineffective. Probably has a lot of line memory left in it. But get rid of your line. Line is cheap. And if you're going to go through all the effort of tuning up your reel for the next season, then by all means get rid of the old line. Put new line on so that you don't have a conversation about the one that got away. Well, this is how that screw cap goes in on your handle. I'll be able to give it a turn. I actually think I just put it on the wrong way. I believe that this was a right-handing turning reel when I started. If not, I'll make sure that it can be switched. This can go right-handed or left-handed. Doesn't matter. Swap it around. And I can go back to my video when I first started and confirm. I like to pay attention to that. And then I'm thinking that the fourth ball bearing it's either in that line guide or in the handle, so I'll put a little drop of oil into the handle. Now that's a whole lot more smooth than it was before we started. So it was a matter that it didn't have the oil and the grease. Now it does. It's a nice reel, the G4000 Daiwa. And if you have one of these, you now know how to tune it up. If you're thinking of buying one, you now know what's inside of it, how it's made, and you can go ahead and acquire one in the used market. So I hope you've enjoyed it. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Again, thanks to all the first responders and essential personnel. Wishing everybody a great day.